This is liking that it hurts. The case of masochism and second-order desire accounts for pain's unpleasantness. This is in the American Philosophical Quarterly. What year was this from? This is from 2022, so relatively recently, by Jonathan Mitchell. It looks like out of Manchester. Ruby doo. Been reading Heidegger on Kant with Luminance. Yeah. So, and that's the whole thing in philosophy. There are multiple ways to think about the world. And this is one of the things someone had told me once I was good. This is one of the few things I learned for the short time I was in grad school. Everyone starts out somewhere. That doesn't really matter. It's where you end up. But like, people are going to start off in different areas, kind of. And so like the background that they have to use to get somewhere useful nowadays, you don't know. So it's like people are going to like different philosophies because everyone starts off, whatever their received philosophy was, whatever kind of disposition they have, it's going to be different for different people. And so they're going to be attracted to different philosophies. The real question isn't like what area they're in. It's like, what hay are they making out of that? What are they doing with it? And, I think as Aris always says, there are certain sorts of like therapies and like psychological practices he does not like. But he says the people doing it are smart, and then they make hay using the psychoanalysis that he does not like. So it's like, that's what it is. Even in like other areas of philosophy, you can make hay out of stuff, but like it's in spite of it being bad philosophy, in my opinion, other people can do stuff with it. And they should learn better and they do better stuff, but everyone has their own like little path to get. So anyway, as always, let me know about if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them in this paper. I'm not endorsing it. This is my first time reading it. Book idea: I can't even. Philosophy puns people should stop fucking using. No, because we're not going to stop doing that. Philosophers are, not very funny usually, and this is all we got, Vipers. So we're going to keep doing it. There are some better philosophy jokes, but not too many. Introduction. Pains as experienced by normal subjects are unpleasant. They hurt. Hey, that's a not terrible first line for philosophy. Although they did have to put a fucking footnote on it. Like there's a little footnote here, so who knows what that's about. Recent work on pain focuses on the question what makes pain unpleasant or better for those pains that are unpleasant in what their unpleasantness consists. Second order desire views, SOD views hereafter, claim that the unpleasantness of pain consists in a second order intrinsic desire that the pain itself ceases or stops. Yeah, to cease or stop. Tough but fair assessment. Yeah. Adam says, or those philosophers, given their starting points, could remain within their old likings and develop on that foundation. Yeah. I mean, who am I to say that like my philosophy is the right philosophy? Everyone fucking thinks so, of course. But like, fads come and go. We may just all be caught in a early 21st century fad at the moment, and all the shit we think is cool, we're gonna realize in like 60 years or something was like, on shaky grounds, like some bad ideas from the 20th century. We were hungover and we have to return to like, late 1800s philosophy, and this whole fucking period was just like a bad dream that like we have to like wake up from. It could happen. Follow up, don't put the cart before the horse. I probably should have published this one first. Yeah. This is a citation for Johnny Cash via Resner 2006. Fads come and go. Kant sucks forever. Yeah, I agree. Kant sucks forever. Ross says mullets are back. It's a bad dream. I saw a kid with one today. I was outside and there was a kid with a mullet and I like stared for a second. I was like, damn, because it was like a proper mullet. I know. It's weird. Okay. So the idea here so far is that we're in pain, and then the idea is that when we're in pain, we have like sort of an idea in the back of our head, second order desire, we're calling it, that we want the pain to stop because we're in pain. The kid was constantly beaten up. Aren't you not shamed? God damn it. Semiotics. Poor Kant. I don't feel bad for Kant. Although it's some very impressive philosophy, I feel like he's responsible for a lot of bad shit in the world too. Like a lot of excuses for people behaving badly. Okay. This view principally contrasts with two first-order views. In the first instance, so the second-order desire view, Sod view, contrasts with the first-order desire accounts, whereby pain's unpleasantness consists in a first-order intrinsic desire that the object of the experience cease or stop, say that some bodily state or disturbance which the experience represents should immediately cease. Yeah, so like say you're getting poked or something, and you're just like, stop the poking. Not that you want the pain to stop, you want the poking to stop. Kate Parsley, I will say that phenomenology is more interesting than the moral theory, in your opinion. Well, we will find out. I like phenomenology more than ethics. Yeah, just in general in terms of philosophy. But again, the idea that like we should investigate what we're doing with our lives, maybe you're getting a little bit of my historical fatalism. Like when I was a kid, I was fatalistic. Like when I was a teenager, I was just like, shit's just gonna happen, and like it was very convenient to be a teenager and not have to take responsibility. Everything's just gonna happen. Chances are that's why I liked it. But I also had this sort of weird pseudo determinism of the universe. Like we had no real control. So like I have less interest in moral theory. Maybe it's a hangover from when I was like young, that like I don't think like there's a whole very good way to judge moral stuff. So yeah. Oh, for Kant specifically? Yeah, I was just gonna say the phenomenology is just like, I just never seem to grasp a moral theory. Like it doesn't seem to figure it, like it doesn't make sense to me. Well, I just don't know what to say. Okay. So, second order desire views also contrast with evaluativism, according to which pain experiences represent the relevant bodily state or disturbances as bad for you. Like, so as one sense, it's a bad for you thing. It is having this evaluative content that makes them unpleasant, rather than the presence of any cognitive attitude, whether directed at the intentional object of the pain experience or the experience itself. Yeah, so like when you're in pain, it comes with a bad for you like flag, and that is what you really don't want, is the bad for you flag. So like, you know, this actually kind of makes some sense, because you can be in like pain in a good way. Maybe you like your BDSM, maybe you like pain, maybe you like just going to the gym and like the pain of like working out, you like that. Like, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. If you want to go to the gym, like, cool. If you just like pain, cool. But like, it's not inherently bad for you. You might kind of enjoy certain painful activities. Oh no, yeah. Viper says, if there's a hell, I accept that I'm going to it today. I read some Australian cops have been shot, and my inner monologue was, oh no, exactly. Well, I mean, what's the old thing? In tougher times, humor gets a lot darker. It's a coping mechanism. So I feel like on the downswing that we're all on because of late stage capitalism, I do expect a lot of dark humor at this point. Maybe I like metaphysics or epistemology of Dark Souls. Aris, like, I feel like I have to bite my tongue. Everyone I know online loves the fucking Dark Souls. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, yeah, I don't care. Sinister Mike says, human facial expressions during orgasm are indistinguishable from pain. There we go. So it's like, yeah, people are straining at their physical limits, and that's something. Dark Souls. I mean, it's got a whole fantasy backing to it. It's a very impressive game for, like, you know, creating a fantasy universe and then just throwing the player in it. So it's like, yeah, I'm glad people like them too. So like, but like, I actually don't play many games. Like, the games I play, I construct. Like Philosophy Roulette. This is a game to me, and that's how it was constructed. This is the game I play. I don't care yet. Yeah, exactly, Luminance. You'll get to me one day. Sure you will. Okay. There are, of course, further to this, various alternative accounts of pain's unpleasantness. For example, certain kinds of functionalist views seek to explain pain's unpleasantness, at least partly in terms of its causal role. And finally, imperativist views, according to which pains have imperative content in the form of action commands, explain pain's unpleasantness by appeal to that imperatival content. Yeah, so an imperative is an order, so it says, I guess you're in pain, it's saying, get your hand out of the fire when you do that. Harris says, a cute alt girl could convince me. I mean, the things I would do, like, given the right situation, as I was saying before, what is your cost? If the cost for me of getting like the woman of my dreams is to play Dark Souls, like that would be a very low cost. I do not mind that. But again, Viper says Dark Souls is for noobs, all about rote memorization. Minesweeper is pure logic. Only men can play figurative ones without penises. Yes. Minesweeper is the most trans game. That's right, Vipers. Unreal says, what would you do for a Klondike bar? Yeah, I mean, murder, like, just like, you know, pillage, all the things. Who knows? The critical discussion of second order desire views has primarily focused on whether it provides a compelling response to a Euthyphro dilemma. Prima facie, SOD views struggle to capture the causal intuition motivating the following statement. We want our pains to stop because they are unpleasant, such that their unpleasantness comes first, and our desire that they stop is arguably a response to that. While this objection raises a challenge to second order views, this paper surveys a different objection by considering the case of the masochist. The first section of the paper frames SOD views in more detail. The second discusses masochistic psychology and explains why it undermines second-order desire views of pain's unpleasantness. The third considers response from second-order desire views and shows why they are unsuccessful. All right, so here's what it looks like. We were just talking about this. Say you're a masochist, you like certain forms of pain. So in those cases, when you like certain forms of pain, you have your desire is that the pain continues. You like that situation where you are in pain. You desire that it continues. So the idea that pain causes a second order desire such that the desire is that you want the pain to stop, that is not necessarily true. It means that the pain and the desire are not causally connected. There's something else going on. There's some intermediate step. And so you can't just immediately reason for in some way from pain to having a desire that the pain stop. Yeah. You were about to buy some Klondikes? Yeah. I've completely lost the plot. Is SOD a new metal band? Yeah. Basically a second order desire in SOD is that you have some abstract thought that when you're in pain that you have a desire, a second order desire, which is like some abstraction that you want the pain to stop. But the fact is that some people like the pain, and so it can't be a necessary thing. That's looks like where this paper is going from the get-go. And credit to them, the author here, what was this? Mitchell. It looks like they've set this up that it makes sense what they're going to do. There's nothing too crazy about this. And, you know, they get to talk about masochists, which is a more fun topic than you normally get in philosophy. Yeah. Oh, for coming, yes. Okay. So 1, second order desire views. So SOD views account for the unpleasantness of, there's definitely some metal band SOD. I mean, there's like a bunch with these sorts of acronyms that sound like this though. SOD views account for the unpleasantness of pain experiences in terms of a second order intrinsic desire that the pain experience itself ceases or stop. So yeah, you can see. So intrinsic desire that the pain experiences itself cease or stop. And that's the whole point, that you're going from the pain directly to the desire that it stops. System of a Down, there we go. Yeah, but that's SOAD, that's right, yeah. System order Akatana desire, yeah. And POD in the 90s, yeah, woof. My brain, I swear to fucking God. I was thinking of both. Yep, there we go. Where the pain experience could be a first order representation of bodily damage or disturbance. To capture the unpleasantness of paradigmatic pains, we would therefore need to understand them as involving second order cognitive intentionality. Also note that the caveat intrinsic. Extrinsic desires or desires for objects or states of affairs, not for their own sake, but for their propensity to secure something else one's desires. Yeah, so it's something intrinsic to you. For example, if a subject has only an extrinsic desire for tax rises on the wealthy, then they do not desire it for its own sake, but say for the propensity of such tax rises to alleviate wealth inequality. Contrastingly, an intrinsic desire for such tax rises desire them for their own sake as something desirable in and of itself, as we might put it, and so regardless of any instrumental consequences of the relevant state of affairs obtaining. The claim of System of a Down view is therefore that subject desire not to have pain experiences or want them to immediately cease per se, for their own sake, that is, regardless of their propensity to bring about other states of affairs that they might not want to attain. For example, putative bad consequences of pain experiences. So it is the subjective desire, frustration attendant to having a pain experience that one intrinsically desires not to have or wants to immediately cease. On this view constitutes pain's unpleasantness. Propensity. So what's up, Sock? Now, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day. So the idea here is just that KPARS is that it's intrinsic. You want the pain to stop because that's what you want. It's not you want the pain to stop because you're thinking the pain is going to cause damage to your body and you need your body to do stuff in the future. That would be extrinsic to the pain. It would be thinking of some future state you want to do something in the future, accomplish. So the propensity is that there is some possibility. And the propensity is basically a possibility word. It just means like a likely thing. So a lot of times you hear propensity in terms of fitness. So you say like an animal that has a certain fitness means it has a propensity to, have so many offspring. So it's a certain kind of probabilistic likelihood. It's a probability with a high likelihood. That's what they usually mean by that. Yeah. Tendency to, yes. Yes. Consider how the views play out in the following example. Say I've just stubbed my toe on the corner of the bed, having badly damaged a toenail, and I'm undergoing an unpleasant pain. And boy, does that hurt. On the SOD view, the unpleasantness of the pain experience I am undergoing is to be explained in terms of the subjective desire, frustration attended to having an experience. In this case, the sensory experience resulted in having stubbed my toe on the corner of the bed that I intrinsically desire not to have or want to immediately cease. So you have an intrinsic desire that you're not in such fucking pain. And that makes some sense. Like there's something built into your body saying, do not be doing this because it fucking sucks. Okay, let us also note that SOD views need not be committed to an implausible propositionalism about unpleasant pain experiences. Many philosophers think of desires as conceptually structured propositional attitudes, and it is implausible that desires in that sense are constitutive of paradigmatic unpleasant pains. Yeah, you don't have to think that you have some proposition that pain is bad. You just viscerally react. We were talking about this with Yovko last stream. This is what you would call non-cognitive. So it'd be, you've got the cognitive, which is the one where you've got a proposition, and non-cognitive is where it's just a visceral, biological or physical reaction on your body's part. Lead Cenobite. The paper you read it, we came. Yeah, and so I mean the whole Cenobite. This is Hellraiser. Is that people like these weird experiences? People like pain. Some are masochists, and that's part of human experience. And so the idea that you're going to deny this, I mean, of course, you don't have to go into like metaphysical beings like the Cenobites that revel in human pain, but the idea that this is part of human experience in not a that crazy way is a good counterexample to. This is why they're using it as a counterexample in this paper. Socknos, I'm in the nebulizer now, dealing with the upper respiratory. Oh, yeah, you were sick. I hope you feel better. Viper says, explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. And that's the whole point. As long as there's some angels to others, then the authors here have made their argument. They're showing a counterexample that pain being inherently bad. That's all. So, I mean, that's what it feels like we're doing here. Angels to luminance, yes. So, for example, it is plausible that non-human animals and human infants undergo unpleasant pains but do not possess the cognitive sophistication to entertain conceptually structured propositional attitudes. Yeah, again, it's a biophysical reaction to pain. We don't like it quite often. So you could say maybe babies don't have the ability to like certain pains, but when you get older, people change. However, if desires in that sense were a requirement on pain's unpleasantness, then SOD views either have to give up the claim that non-human animals and human infants have unpleasant pains or attribute them a cognitive sophistication beyond their ken. The better route is to appeal to a conative desire-like attitude. In what follows, we can continue to talk in terms of desires, but we should keep in mind that such talk need not refer to conceptually structured propositional attitudes, but a simpler or more basic kind of conative attitude. Let's now consider the case of the masochist and the problem this creates for SOD views. Sockno hates pain in multiple ways. Yes. Viper says, website merch idea, paddle with SOD cut out of it. Yeah, you know. I, back in the early days of Philosophy Roulette, I used to email all the authors to the YouTube video. So I upload all the videos to YouTube, and I used to, go track down the author's email address, and I'd email them saying, hey, I read your paper, and I gave you some feedback. Check it out over on my YouTube. And there was a paper where I was like, this person is really fucking angry. This person is like really fucking angry. Like they are like pissed the fuck off. And they wrote this paper. And the author got back to me and was like, yeah, I was angry. And instead of taking it out on anyone else, I wrote a philosophy paper. And they were like, I'm like happy like with the philosophy paper and the way it came out. And the fact that you saw how angry I was in the paper, they were like, yeah, that's cool. Like it's a better use of my energy to write a philosophy paper than to like, rage on a person. So it's like, you do see this. And I wonder if like this person here, Mitchell, I wonder if they like their BDSM. Maybe they really like their BDSM. And so when they were reading this philosophy, it was obviously wrong to them because they were like, I like certain pains and this fucks up their theory. So this would not be so surprising. Like, Frank says, is this person assuming you cannot have a desire for and against the same thing? So unless someone explicitly mentions it in philosophy, generally they're trying to be consistent. So if you have a desire for something or desire against it, they're going to do the Aristotelian no third value in the middle or whatever. So I would assume yes, Frank. Usually if they're going to go and make a claim that you can have both at the same time, they say that. They're explicit about it. Yeah, so leather one, sure, Vipers. Let's get as kinky as you like. Lumen says, when I asked a friend why he decided to get a Prince Albert, he replied, do you know how sometimes your teeth gets in really good and hurts, but it feels good? And seemed to assume the answer described a universal experience. I remember in high school, my buddy of mine said he liked getting mosquito bites because, when you press your like nail into the mosquito bite and like you get that like rush of like relief for that second, he was like, he loved that. I was like, you're psychotic, my friend. I was like, you're nuts. I was like, no, I don't want a mosquito bite. I will forego that moment of relief if I can like not be scratching the rest of the day. But like, yeah, there is in a very small sense that moment of relief in all the pain. And I get that. I mean, I was just thinking about that because I got the fuck bitten out of me just a few days ago. Yeah, I got really bitten up over the weekend and I was like, scratching at it, and I was like, I get that, like, you get the relief from scratching, but yeah. So I was like, yeah. I was like, it's not, there's something to that, though. Like, do I want that, like, relief when I get, like, crap from out my teeth? It's like, sure, but I'd rather have not had that problem to begin with. Adam says, the concept of higher order desires, particularly the idea of a desire to not desire something, often referred to as a meta-desire, is notably associated with the philosopher Harry Frankfurt in his influence philosophy, freedom of the will, and the concept of a person. Frankfurt distinguishes between first-order desires, basics for specific things, and higher desires, desires about desires. Remember reading a philosophy of intentionality course in syllabus? Yeah, so this is a sophisticated area of philosophy. People have talked a lot about this, but that's also why I responded the way I did to the above question was, if they are talking about things that conflict like that, they make it explicit. They say so because this is a developed area of philosophy. Ara says, if you have a contradiction, get a better description. Shut up, you fucking Aristotelian. Don't be pushing that shit here. I know about lots of non-classical logics. Don't be giving me this shit. Unreal says, malaria is a high price to pay. I'm in New York. I'm not getting malaria, Brian. But yes. Frank says, it seems very obvious to me that I can want something and not want at the same time. And yeah, there's an overall value you can extract, but you lose a lot of the info doing so. And you see a contradiction doesn't have to be. Yeah, so we're talking about not so complicated things here. Like, go stub your toe really hard, bang your knee really hard. These are experiences everyone's had. And you're like, God damn, this hurts. I'd rather not have banged my knee in this way. I remember a story on Reddit a while back, and some boyfriend was asked by his girlfriend to be a little bit BDSM, and the guy was like, I have no experience. I ask you, Reddit, what should I do? And so you got a lot of comments from more experienced BDSM folks in chat, and he came back the few days later. He says, I thought I game planned this, I did it. And he said he basically he picked his girlfriend up, and like he made it very obvious they were heading towards the bedroom, but when he was getting towards the bedroom door, he obviously misaimed. So like she saw it coming, and he walked her right into the door frame really hard, and she fucking lost her mind. She loved it. And it was like one of these things, like, do you want to walk into a door frame? No. Was that the right thing for that guy to do in that moment? Yes. He said the fucking night was a blast. He said it was one of the greatest nights. So whatever. So like you can have these sorts of things, but again, we're talking about the much simpler, not like you can have a reason to stub your toe on the table, but like this is not those cases. You have to bring those up. Viper says, our generation knows this. Mr. Hands Moan was the no around the world. Spanked her to see that? Yeah, paper. Valpo, no, you're right, Valpo. I did not do the correct thing. Let me fix that. Copy. And I forgot how to stream already. What's up, Valpo? How are you? I hope if you have started your semester that has started well. So this was, we were talking about, what were we talking about? We were talking about pain at the moment. But yeah, besides this whole tangent, I mean, I can almost guarantee that this person at least has considered BDSM, because they would not be talking about masochists so much. Like, if you put me in this situation, this is not my first reaction. I'm not like, I don't have masochistic tendencies, or at least not like what it looks like is going on in this paper. So, sorry, pointing the wrong way. So it's just like, I could learn them. I don't mind, but like, this wouldn't be my first thought. And so a lot of times when I'm writing philosophy, it's like, well, I've had different experiences than what's going on with these writers. And that's why I'm a weird person. Like, I write metaphysics because I feel like my experience is different from just like the basic experience of the world. This is a guy who likes masochism. I don't know if he likes masochism. I don't even know if it's a he. I'm assuming Jonathan Mitchell. But like, they at least had this thought. Started with COVID. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry to hear about that. Shit, yeah, you said you had a class and then you got COVID from the little piss ants in your class. Boo. Okay. But yeah, so we get to learn something about Jonathan Mitchell now. I'm more like to be at the Scat Club than the BDSM Club. The Jazz. Yes, exactly, Jazz. That's true. I mean, I've not been to a BDSM club. I have been to jazz clubs. I am not against BDSM clubs, of course. I mean, I've been to clubs where BDSM stuff has been going on, but it wasn't like going to like a BDSM thing. Yeah. Okay. Whatever else is true of the psychology of masochists, in specifically usually sexual contexts, they seek out certain kinds of pains and, within those contexts, are fairly described as lacking some kind of desire for the pain experience to cease, as we shall see the precise character of the desires in play is contestable. Yeah, so exactly. They have to actually appeal to the BDSM community here. But a BDSM jazz club, but you repeat yourself? It says, if you've been to a magic tournament or a video game con, you've seen the average BDSM person for sure. I have not. I mean, I sit very quietly, doing very little. I like read my fucking notebook. Yeah. I mean, I am going to a video game, like a Minesweeper tournament, but to tell you the truth, I don't think that's your normal video game con. But yeah. And yeah, I haven't gone yet. I'm going in September. Context caveats are essential since masochists do not seek out unpleasant pains per se. So this is fair. There are certain pains they like and certain pains they don't like. You have to sort these things out. In this section, the author wants to be clear that they are considering what might be called a thin conception of masochism, whose defining feature is some desire for the continuation of the pain experience, exemplified most obviously in the classical case of sexual masochism. Author says, I won't comment on whether the analysis extends to activities like extreme sports, eating hot food, watching horror movies, etc. I think this person fits right in with many of the commentators in chat. We have horror aficionados. I mean, I like hot food. I'm not eating the hot food for the hotness though, but like I do like hot food. And extreme sports, I actually think are kind of cool. I haven't done anything extreme in a long time though. Viper says, I listened to a podcast earlier that was entirely about the clip of Kim Cattrall scatting with her significant other. It was hilarious. Most likely smell too. I do love me, my Kim. I really like Kim Cattrall. She was on Conan O'Brien once, and she fucking, like, she ran circles around him, and you don't normally see anyone run circles around Conan O'Brien. It was fucking hilarious. And, like, he just kind of lost it. Like, he didn't know what to do. She just kept, she was just too quick. Stockholm, I have a question on this title, though. What if one was forced out of their own will to masochism and they don't like it? Because I think there needs to be a contraposition of see the whole picture. The idea here is that, assuming there are people who like certain pains, and we're going to call those people masochists, what does that mean for theories that directly associate pain with a desire not to continue having that pain? And so, yeah, the title is underspecified, even as long as it is, but their argument is not that complex in the end. They're just showing a counterexample to one version of a theory. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, that the title is a little bit misleading, but it is a fun title, and they get points for having a fun title in philosophy. So, yeah. If you have further questions, let me know, Sakna. Okay, author says, let's start by sketching the relevant aspects of the perverse psychology of this kind of masochist that will occupy us here. Part of the purported perversity of the masochist and their relation to the sadist who typically inflicts the pain is a desire for the continuation of an experience, namely pain, which for psychological reasons needs to be phenomenally unpleasant. And see, here's the thing, like, I don't know this distinction between the masochist and the sadist. I'm sure I could look it up, but I would not have, like, immediately had that, and no reference here for anything. So, like, this person is just assuming these are, like, definitions, and see, it's typically does it. So they're not even saying this is what they're defining it as. They're just saying this is what it is. So they're treating this as like a something that is like understood. So again, this person has to have at least researched this area of philosophy, or I mean, not philosophy, this area of human experience, I guess. They continue, this is because if pain inflicted on the masochist by the sadist or by themselves did not have phenomenal unpleasantness built in, it could not support their pursuit of a kind of perversity. Reflecting this, the sadist would get no joy inflicting pains on pain asymbolics. What's a pain in I don't know what this, and a pain in symbolic is. For whom such experiences are not unpleasant, sadists want to inflict and masochist wants to be the recipient of pains that are unpleasant, at least to some extent. They, in some sense, want pains that hurt. Okay, so maybe they get pains that just don't hurt or something. Yeah. All right. This is borne out in the following considerations. Adam says there's a thin line between love and hate. Like I was saying, I've always had a love-hate relationship with philosophy. Like, this shit drives me nuts, but like, I'm in the matrixy kind of issue with my world. It's like there's a problem with my world. It doesn't like make sense. And people keep being like, oh yeah, I've got a theory of that. I'm like, no, you don't. Your theory sucks. It's like everything people say doesn't make sense to me. So it's like, it always drives me crazy. Yeah, and Valpo got the song going. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Okay, I gotta learn how to sing too one of these years. Okay, this is borne out in the following considerations. If one were to ask masochists, why do you like it of the pain, they would not respond because it doesn't hurt, or it is actually quite pleasant. Instead, they are likely to respond, I like it because it hurts, or I like that it hurts. Call this the masochist's mantra. Unless we have strong reason to suspect insincerity, we should take the masochist mantra at face value, although, as we shall see, it requires further clarification. Further to this, the masochist would surely be indifferent to pains which did not hurt, that were not unpleasant, and they might ask the sadist to dial up the pain until it did. As Colin Klein puts it, in discussing masochistic psychology, people actually seek out the painful experience as such, and often seem to think that it would be diminished without the pain. This is most obvious in the case of sexual masochism. Some people pay sex workers to whip them. This is a specialized service, so it costs more than simply paying for sex would. These Considerations show how the second order desire views cannot explain such cases by claiming that the masochist lacks the relevant unpleasant constituting intrinsic second order desire, but this is fine because they can enjoy pain, where this is understood as claiming that their pains are not unpleasant for them. Yeah, eurythmics. Yeah, anyway. There's also a thin line between hyphenated words. Correct. And there's also quoting record companies rather than anything kinky. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what was that? There's a bunch of songs about like the industry and people in it, and like you can like you can transfer them to other stuff. Like, you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. Like, I forget who that was. It was one of some actor, but it was like you can say it about anyone, but there was an actual specific person that song was directed at. So. Okay, so from this analysis, and this is a fair way of arguing, but I do want to point out that the people can double down. You can say that anyone who likes pain is in some sense broken. They can just define themselves out of the problem and just be like, in their theory, everyone who's a masochist is got something wrong with them. I am not claiming that everyone who's a masochist doesn't do that, but like in philosophy, you can do this. You can just declare huge swaths of humanity to be defective. I do not suggest you do that, and the author doesn't even say that, like bring this up, but like this is actually a response to this argument. But the fact that there's plenty of BDSM clubs, that we all know what we're talking about here, that everyone's seen this in the media, whether they like it or not, it shows that there's enough people out there that declaring them all defective is probably wrong. But you see this in politics all the time. You know, they pick a subpopulation that they don't like, and they say there's something wrong with them, and they go after them, and, you know, that's how they rally their troops. And it's a fucked up thing to do. But, like, that's a political move. But, like, you can also do it in philosophy, but, again, equally shitty. Well, no, not equally shitty, because a lot less people die in text. But, yeah, you can definitely just define everyone as deviant if you want, and it's not good, but it is a strategy. Okay, from this analysis, the author can formulate the following premises. 1. It is an essential part of the perversity of masochistic psychology that masochists desire the continuation of an experience which is phenomenally unpleasant. 2. If one is true, then masochistic pain experience needs to be sufficiently similar to that of normal subjects qua phenomenal unpleasantness to satisfy the perverse psychology of enjoying pain. And to be fair, the author has continually called it perverse, although I don't think their use of perverse here is actually very critical. It's just labeling it, I mean, I don't like their use of it. I think it's just a minority psychology. Most people are not doing BDSM, although maybe they are in like their own fucked up way. They just don't realize how much they like, being tied up in, economic or by other means. But like, I don't like the perverse here is just sort of the unique subculture here. Okay, so we can supplement 1 and 2 with additional premises, which generate an argument against SOD views. 3. The masochist lacks a second-order desire directed at the pain experience, namely that it should cease. 4. If 3 is true, the pain experience of the masochist cannot be unpleasant according to SOD view, since what constitutes the unpleasantness of pains on that view is a second-order desire that the pain experience cease. 5, however, if 1, 2, 3, and 4 are true, we have inconsistent sets. The pain experience needs to be unpleasant for our psychological characterization of masochism to go through, 1 and 2, but the relevant unpleasantness constituting second-order desires is absent, 3 and 4. See, so the conclusion, so the second-order desire analysis of pain's unpleasantness is false. Ara says NYC is the place called the Fetish Fortress in Chinatown. Yeah, I know there are fetish clubs. A friend of mine went to one years ago. He had a good time. He said that he got there a little early and there weren't too many people around, and there were like a few floors in this place. He went up to the 4th floor, and he said that when he got up there was just a few people, but notably there was like this older couple, and there was a woman bent over, her pants down or whatever, and there was a guy, and there was like an old couple, so we're talking like 70s plus, and the guy was just wailing on her as hard as he could with a paddle, and they just kept at it for like just, he didn't stop. He was just like wailing on her ass, like just like smash, 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 like over and over. And they were just like, okay. And it just didn't stop. They just kept going. So I was like, yes, this stuff does exist. It's not so hard to get to. You have to like, sign up or whatever, sign paperwork, but like you can go. Luminance says reading philosophy papers, BDSM for sapiosexuals. Yeah. I mean, thank you for the lurk, misadventures. I started reading philosophy on Twitch in part to exhaust myself. This is not easy for me. I do not naturally just like do this sort of stuff. Like I'm not just going to be on Twitch. Like in general, like for fun, I'm not like extroverted in this way. So it's like I do this in some sense because it is exhausting for me. Like I wouldn't call this BDSM, but like I definitely, like, it ain't easy. So yeah. Aris says that super advanced play, that's got to be wild to see. Yeah. So, I mean, he said like his first time he was there and he just goes up there and it's just like crazy shit. Like, okay. Yeah. And he went with a woman and he said the bouncer was like, is this your first time here? And they're like, yes. He's like, okay, sir, you have to know that every single guy in this place is going to like try to get with your woman while they're here. So he's like, yeah, we understand. It's like, okay. So I was like, everyone's trying to do this. Lots of yeah, it was an interesting story. Viper says, I keep picturing the author of this staring out the window on a cab ride home from the dominatrix, experiencing a post-orgasmic existential crisis from CBT, thinking, I gotta write this shit down. The funny part was, that's how I was thinking of this author at first, and then I was thinking when I was reading that bit about perverse, why is this author calling the BDSM community perverse? Maybe this is like a really repressed person that wishes they were doing this stuff, and they're just kind of so repressed, but like they kind of have it in their head like, oh my god, there's another way to be. And instead of like actually going out and having any fun with their life, they wrote a philosophy paper. Lacanian, perhaps. Okay, responses from SOD View. How might SOD views respond? Let me note a first response from the SOD theorists, the prospects for which are arguably poor. It may be claimed that we should just posit that masochists undergo pains that are both pleasant and unpleasant in different respects, such that on the SOD view they have conflicting cognitive attitudes to the relevant different aspects of pain experiences. And this is maybe what Frank was actually trying to say earlier. I don't know, but like the idea that maybe it's that there's just more than one thing going on and you just need a different theory here. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah. Who knows? Okay, so yeah, maybe this is what Frank was getting at, but like, yeah, maybe it's just a weird mental state. But again, this would be a fucked up mental state, is basically calling the BDSM people having weird psychology. The SOD analysis would be as follows, that they simultaneously have both an intrinsic desire that the pain experience cease, which accounts for the phenomenal unpleasantness, and an intrinsic desire that the pain experience continue, which accounts for the phenomenal pleasantness. However, can a pain experience specifically be simultaneously phenomenally pleasant and unpleasant? Do you think Pinhead's little head has pins on it too? Seeing as the rest of his body outside of his head does not have pins on it, I have no reason to assume that it does. But then again, maybe it, that's a good question. Okay. What was that person was saying? Oh shit, no, that was a different movie. Someone in a different chat was saying they had gone to work and like they go to people's houses and stuff, and one dude had all this like memorabilia from a movie. I don't think it was these movies, the Hellraisers. It was a different movie, but he was like, man, this guy's a super fan, and it turned out to be one of the costume designers on the movie, and he was like, oh shit, like this is like the actual stuff, not a collector. Okay, even if we think there's a possibility insofar as relevant different desires are directed at different aspects of the experience, a further problem is we run up against one, which told us that it is an essential part of the perversity of masochistic psychology that masochists desire the continuation of an experience which is phenomenally unpleasant. Yeah, so this is a good response. Even if you have both the pleasure and the pain, the masochist says they like the pain. Now you could say they're confused, but that is hard. You're saying now they are irrational and fucked up psychology. Maybe, but like again, it's getting harder and harder to just deny human experience at this point, because it's not like there's one person in like a psych ward claiming this. There are plenty of people in the world that are like this. So it does make it harder and harder to just say that there's something wrong with them. Okay. However, masochists would on this picture be perfectly rational. You see, again, it's running up to the rationality problem. Are these people rational? Yes. Like, they're not stupid people. Be perfectly rational in intrinsically desiring the continuation of some relevant part of experience, a desire which constitutes its being phenomenally pleasant, and intrinsically desiring the cessation of some other relevant part of the experience, a desire which constitutes its being phenomenally unpleasant. Put otherwise, this analysis turns masochistic psychology into an everyday case of conflicting desire, where it is rational to desire X under aspect Y, and so for A reasons, and desire not X under aspect Z for B reasons. But surely, so the thought goes, we credit masochistic psychology with being more perverse or irrational than this implies. Yeah, so again, this means it's all going to get very messy. And if your theory requires claiming all these people are just very messy in their psychology, their rationality, it's hard, because you're basically saying you're telling other people how they are. And that's not a great philosophy. Okay, finally, arguably a further problem with this response to the above argument is that a second-order desire for the pain experience to continue, which as such constitutes its phenomenal pleasantness, is self-contradictory on the SOD analysis insofar as it would no longer count as a pain. An intrinsic desire for an experience to continue is what, on SOD analyses, make the relevant experience phenomenally pleasant, and we surely lose our grip on the sense of what we are talking about if we admit of phenomenally pleasant pains, even phenomenally pleasant parts of pains. Yeah, so again, you are telling them that what they say isn't what they think they say. Adam says, sounds like Carl Jung's psychoanalysis of the shadow. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, which represents the repressed, darker aspects of the self. This includes desires and impulses that the individual may not acknowledge. In this context, BDSM practices could be seen as the expression of the shadow, where individuals explore aspects of their psyche that are often hidden. True if you are only your desires, etc. Yeah. And that's the issue. It's not like these are crazy theories to say people have conflicting desires or different parts of themselves that may want different things, or that you might want different things at different times under different situations. Sure. The problem is, when these people say they want this stuff, are they just nuts every time they say that? It doesn't look like it. Like, they are not like this irrational as far as I understand the BDSM community. Like, it doesn't make sense that like they're this confused about what they're up to. As far as I know, they really like consent in these parts of the world, and the idea that they're confused about this sort of stuff and consent really doesn't make any sense either. Okay. Arguably, we would not then be able to talk of masochistic pains, but rather a proprietary experience enjoyed by masochists, which is both phenomenally pleasant and unpleasant. Yeah, so you start making up new things all of a sudden to explain your theory if you have to do this complicated dance to explain what's going on. Okay, but then 2 is false. Masochistic pain experience would not be sufficiently similar to that of normal subjects, qua phenomenal unpleasantness, to satisfy the perverse psychology of enjoying pain. Well, yeah, maybe they are somehow different kinds of humans. They have a different experience. That also would be very weird. Like, it would be biologically different. So given these problems, I don't think the above response is the best route for the SOD view to take. Here is a more promising, though I argue ultimately unsuccessful, response to the argument of section 2, drawing on the distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic desires. The second-order desire that the masochist has when they claim to enjoy pain is not the appropriate second-order desire that explains the negative character of pain, and neither does it contradict it. Okay, so we've got 2 different things going on. I can understand this. In wanting unpleasant pains, the masochist wants pain that in a different aspects they do not want. They also do not want. They have a higher order extrinsic desire to be in a situation where they have a pain experience that is the target of an intrinsic desire that the experience stop, the latter being the appropriate second order desire that explains the negative character of pain. In this sense, we can explain the perversity of masochistic psychology in terms of their extrinsically wanting an unpleasant experience, and so this is no counterexample to SOD views. Again, yeah. So say you like, as my friend did, or as the example in chat, you like the relief after the pain way more than like most people understand. So the relief thing, you just love that. And so you like the pain because the more the pain, the more the relief. But that's something else. That's not the pain itself. That's the relief afterwards. And that would be cool. If that's what you like, that's what you like. Sure. So that, okay, fine. But then again, then you're saying, again, it's not what the people say they want. They say they like the pain, and this is the intrinsic thing that they like the pain, and not this other order thing that you have to, again, postulate. Maybe for some of them it is the relief afterwards, but that's not what they say they like. PHT says the desires are just competing pleasures in that case, but perhaps what makes this tricky is that the pleasure is competing with itself. Yeah, and so, again, the idea that, like, you again, whatever you're doing here, it's like, yeah, they're trying to like thread a needle here to say whatever the masochist really wants something else, and it gets harder and harder. And what the strategy the author is using in this writing is none of these arguments are knockdown arguments. They're just forcing the views, the SOD view, into a really hard corner. So you're backing them up. And I'm sure the SOD could like put their foot down. As I said earlier, you could just declare all masochists insane. And that's a subpopulation. And you say, look, these are just fucked up people. You can do that. I don't suggest you do that. I think that's a bad strategy. And I don't think that's accurate to humanity. So it's like just bad philosophy, and you'd be probably a shitty person on top of it. But like you could do that. This can play a role in self-harm too. Yes, that's also true. So like you could have other things going on. But like for these people who like this sort of stuff, it seems like you have to take them at the word, and every time you try to get around it, you just get backed up into a corner. Sakno says, I'd also like to point out here is the limit between, because what I keep getting notes is the difference between diagnosing versus gratification, because we don't want another Stanford prison experiment. Yeah, that's fair. And so that's also what I was saying earlier. I think this is a good point. The non-masochist here wants to always be telling the other people what's really going on and like diagnosing it as something deviant. Again, that's seems like this is has a very white bread version of the world, which is just inaccurate. It's unreal. It's not like this. Is just lacks reality. It lacks humanity. This is not how people are. It's like you have a very idealized, simplified version of what people are if you keep telling people that everybody that isn't just having like, you know, vanilla white guy from Europe ideas and sex is wrong. It's like, yeah, go back to your Kantian bullshit from hundreds of years ago. Okay. In terms of our argument, SOD views could accept an amendment of version 1, keeping 2 as it is, where 1 star would read, it is an essential part of the perversity of masochistic psychology that masochists have an extrinsic desire for the continuation of an experience which needs to be phenomenally unpleasant. Yeah, so something else is going on that is causing you need to have the pain. However, SOD views would reject 3 and 4. On their view, the masochist does not lack an intrinsic desire directed at the pain experience, namely that it should cease. In fact, they putatively share with normal subjects the possession of that intrinsic desire. What, however, the masochist possesses that normal subjects do not is an extrinsic desire that the unpleasant pain should continue. As such, to repeat, their possession of this extrinsic desire has no bearing on the supposed unpleasant constituting second-order intrinsic desire that they also have, which is directed at the pain experience itself. Yeah, so for the SOD view, you need it to be intrinsic, and they also don't have this. They just have a separate extrinsic desire that overrides it or has supplanted the intrinsic desire that you want the pain to stop. So again, the SOD view gets the description of masochists wrong. Okay. Importantly, this response clarifies what would be a successful counterexample to SOD views. What is required is a case where a subject intrinsically desires a continuation of an unpleasant experience. If SOD views of pain's unpleasantness are correct, then such a case should be psychologically impossible. In what follows, I show we can have a good reason to think that think such a case found in a proper description of at least some cases of masochistic psychology. Yeah, and so again, like I was saying, this whole paper seems to be a counterexample to a view. That's the strategy here. They've pushed the SOD view into a corner. That person can, double down and just be like, y'all are fucked up. I don't care what you say. And then now they're going to give a plausible counterexample to say, hey, look, even if you think you're just going to put your foot down, there is a good counterexample that stands. So that's the strategy in this paper. We can first say more about the relevant extrinsic desire posited above by SOD views. In this case, the masochist's higher order extrinsic desire is for the continuation of the unpleasant experience, where it is understood along SOD lines. They therefore seek that state of affairs not for its own sake, but for the sake of securing something else they desire. We should ask, however, what instrumental effects of the continuation of unpleasant pain experiences are relevant. Perhaps an appeal could be made to the gratification of the sadist who inflicts the pain. Alternatively, we might appeal to a cognitive enjoyment attendant to not succumbing to that immediate message from their body that what is going on in the pain experience needs to immediately cease. Yeah, so they're just they like the discipline of it. Cost money. What's up? So many words. I mean, are you talking about your own screen name there? Cost money? It all costs money? Yes. I mean, this is philosophy. There are so many words. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, Cost. What they extrinsically desire would therefore be a kind of deferred higher order gratification. However, regardless of whether any such instrumental considerations are an essential part of masochistic psychology, it is arguably possible to imagine cases in which they are absent. There are considerations which show that at least some masochists can be described as intrinsically desiring the continuation of an unpleasant experience. Remember the masochist's mantra that they like that it hurts, or that like it because it hurts. Yeah, so they're very direct here. Cost says, hey, every time I'm okay, this should be good, and I get into the mood to read some philosophy, the number of words to get a single thought out is staggeringly large. Yeah, I mean, this is part of the problem of academic philosophy, is that you've got to deal with so many examples, counterexamples, counterarguments. I mean, maybe go get yourself a book of aphorisms. People who are trying to say a thought very succinctly. But you have to have some reason for dealing with, big ideas in this way. And I mean, I'm not against dealing with big ideas in this way. You're trying to, move a discussion, change people's ideas, not just give them a thought. You're trying to do something to them. But I appreciate it. Oh, you're trying to learn the cognitive versus non-cognitive. Well, we're actually discussing that. I don't know how long you've been here for, but this is a paper on masochism actually. And is it is there a thought that you have pain? I'm in pain and that's bad? Or do you just have a visceral reaction to it? The non-cognitive is that when you're in pain, it's a visceral reaction. You're not having a thought, oh, I'm in pain and therefore it's bad. It's just you're in pain and you need to do something. And so that's an issue. PhD, can poetry be seen as a condensed version of philosophy? Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. They're some poetry, may just be there to delight you. So other poetry, again, might be there to express ideas. If you have not followed our buddy Luminance Bloom, he is a philosopher and a poet. You need to we'll give him another shout out, even though we already gave him one. See if I can. Yeah, so if you don't know Luminance, this is a question for him. Viper says, and earlier investigating the conceptual and operational equivalence between systemic cognitive oscillatory operations and dynamic oscillatory oscillations. Yes, we were also discussing that earlier. That was a very, very fruitful line of research that we were talking about. We're going to get back to that. Cost says, I will attempt to refrain from future interruptions. This is not an apology, more of a self-realization that may have interrupted with a non sequitur. It doesn't matter, Cost. This is stream, dude. This is stream. It's what we do here. Yeah. So, it's yeah. Thanks for the double shout. Yeah, no. What are you going to do? There's only so many philosophers I can shout out. I already shouted out half of the philosophers that stream regularly. So, it's I need to get Prof and then maybe Tommy and Baraday, and that's, I've got everyone else. Between you, Aris, and yeah, that's it. As far as I know of the people actually discussing actual academic philosophy. But yeah. Okay, where were we? So yeah, again, we have to take people at their word. If you're just going to declare people to be wrong and stupid, sure, but you're not. It's not like you have to have a really good reason to do that. And then you also need science to back you up, because who gives a fuck what armchair philosophers are saying? And that's literally what we're doing here. But if you take people at the word, then you have to do that. Stockton's question, though they're not a doctor, would be that what point does pain receptors don't work on the human being? Because we can have people's desire that they like it, but at what point does it just remove the pain receptors that are needed for understanding danger, like burning or bleeding profusely? The understanding here is that they do feel it. So we are not damaging the pain receptors in this, in the current discussion. That is something that we are not discussing here. The idea is that they like that it hurts, by definition, and therefore they're not getting damaged to the point where they can't feel it, because then it wouldn't hurt anymore. Yeah, or blocking them with anesthetic, that's right. No, the whole point is that you are feeling it. You are going to the dentist and you're saying, I don't want the anesthetic because I like it. You're not getting the anesthetic, you're not damaging them yourself to the point where you don't feel it anymore. Okay. So this mantra can't easily be made sense of, or at least can't be given a face value reading on the view according to which the difference between masochistic and non-masochistic psychology, qua cognitive attitudes to pain, is best explained in terms of the former having that higher order extrinsic desire for the continuation of an unpleasant experience, whereas normal subjects lack it. Like dentist pain is next level, could you imagine? Yeah, I've been to the dentist. Oh, dude. I needed stitches on my hand once, and they missed with the anesthetic, and I started turning green, like legit turning green. And I can tell you I started turning green because the nurse was like, oh my God, you're turning green. And I said, why? And the doctor was like, no. I was like, doc, the nurses are like, the nurse was calling all the other nurses around to like come over, and she was like, look at him, he's actually turning green. I'm like, yeah, I don't react to pain. Well, I feel it, but I don't react. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in an extreme amount of pain at the moment. Like, I just say it like, yeah, I'm in an extreme amount of pain. And so I'm not surprised I'm like turning green at this point. So it's like, yeah, that was shitty. It isn't easy being Unreal Brian Green, yes. So, yeah. I mean, you got to remember, back in the day, they didn't have the anesthetics we did. They had alcohol that you could get drunk, but like you had to fucking do it. How long did it last? Not that long. That's why I put up with it. I was just on my finger. Like, I don't know if I could like I can show you the, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, okay. It's not going to work. But like there's just a line on the side of my finger. So it was only that long. Yeah. Maddie, I am. Oh, man. Yeah. So, yeah. Viper said, I once had a substitute large-breasted German dentist. It wasn't unpleasant. Yeah, there. God damn it. Undercover Marvel hero? Yeah, no. Unreal says, I tend to be oblivious to Novocaine, so they end up having to give me 3 shots to the normal one. Yeah, like, what's it called? Codeine doesn't work for me. Like, it's genetic. It doesn't work for my dad either. Like, we don't feel it at all. So, like, they've given me codeine for stuff before, and I was just in pain. I was like, yeah, codeine doesn't work. They're like, really? I was like, yeah. I was talking to my dad. I was like, it doesn't work for us. So it's like, yeah, that's really shitty. But thankfully Novocaine works. Like, yeah. Sick Bob Flanagan. What is that? Morbidly beautiful. Adam says, Quine would say you seek relief from not having something, but the thought of your mental life was blocked off from logical analysis, so no logical inference could be made about what is or was not like. Quine, yeah, seriously, Quine really. Okay, so there's a guy. Okay, I don't know what that is. But yeah, check it out. Let's see. What have we got from Koss? Okay, so yeah, there's a documentary about this guy. Interesting. So it looks like he did a lot of shit to himself. Cool. Looks like fun, actually. A fun article. Not fun stuff. I don't care mostly for that. From not having something, yeah. Koss says he was a person with a form of cystic fibrosis that essentially killed his pain receptors. What would be excruciating for us would tickle him. Interesting. So it was a medical thing for that guy. See, and that's kind of interesting because that's actually kind of how I feel the opponents of the masochists are treating all the masochists. That all of a sudden, that like what they feel, what they're calling pain, they actually like it. But that's not true. Like, it's that guy on this Morbidly Beautiful Bob Flanagan article. That guy is unusual. He's not your typical masochist, though. Like, that's not who they are. They're not like people with a very strange like a case of cystic fibrosis. Yeah, an extreme outlier, exactly. And that's why it's very dangerous to declare huge swaths of the population to be deviant, because really your theories are bad. It's not going to be huge swaths of the population, or typically minorities is how it goes. But like, yeah, he enjoyed the pain too. You know, he's got obviously an unusual case. So he may have also been a masochist on top of feeling other stuff when in pain. Okay. Losing my voice. Yeah, see, that's the thing, Vipers. Like, people like their racism. They do. So. Okay. So yeah, so again, where were we? Alright, so we're going to continue. This is because prima facie such statements, we have to take people's statements that they enjoy the pain, that the desire for continuation of unpleasant pain is not merely of having some such extrinsic desire. Yeah, when they say they like the pain, they mean they like the pain, not something else. Understood mean that and unpleasant pains for masochists are exclusively suffered through for the sake of further ends, as a means to further desired ends. Instead, the mantra, liking that it hurts, suggests that for certain masochists at least, the hurting, the unpleasant pain experience is at least partly desired as an end in itself, partly along the relevant higher order extrinsic desires. In other words, on one face value of reading of liking that it hurts, the buck stops with the hurting rather than anything for which it is suffered. Again, yeah, so it's like, if you take people at their word, then that's what they like. Viper says astronomy only subdivides the population by 12. There are a lot more ways to be racist than that. Therefore, racist beliefs are statistically more accurate than astrological ones. I mean, sure. I mean, it is more fine-grained to talk about people by races than, you know, astrological or astronomical things. Yes, and now you can argue your astrological signs in chat. Okay. The above analysis is reflected in the following considerations. SOD views of masochistic psychology arguably turn those who extrinsically desire the continuation of unpleasant pains into would-be masochists. Consider the following case. As I sit in the dentist chair, here we go. The drill hits the nerve ending of my root canal, and as a result, I undergo agonizing pain. Nevertheless, I am prepared to suffer through it and extrinsically desire it to be in the state, insofar as I desire a state of affairs, my dental health, for the sake of which I'm willing to undergo unpleasant pain. I've had a root canal, they suck. However, I do not like that it hurts under any reasonable description. Nonetheless, my psychology is accurately characterized as involving a higher order extrinsic desire to be in a situation where I have a pain experience that is the target of an intrinsic desire that the experience stop. Now, it runs afoul of common sense intuitions about the psychology differences between non-masochists who suffer through their pains as necessary evils and masochists who sincerely claim to like that it hurts, to have them both be explained by structurally similar mental economies involving similar extrinsic desires. And this is what I was saying earlier about people who like to work out. You might not like the burn in your muscles, but you might like to be in shape. Like, that's very common. And the example here I like because it says, look, all the people who go to the gym are then masochists, which makes no fucking sense. Like, there's a whole lot more people that go to the gym that don't think of themselves in this way. And it wouldn't follow under normal definitions of the words. Okay, so this is what the response we are considering from the SOD results in, and in doing so, it undercuts the perversity of the masochist psychology in making it structurally similar to the individuals who willingly suffer through unpleasant pains for instrumental reasons. Fuck to work out. Ra, if I had that option, I would, but instead I have a Bowflex at this point. Yeah. Sun house, moon house, yeah, peach state, that's, yeah. You get different houses. Oh, yeah, like, you can break people down into much more, yeah, like the angles of the sun when you were born. So that's fair. Maybe we do have enough astrology to be very specific about, like, times of day when you were born, days, months, years, all that. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the things. I mentioned that earlier too, Cos, that they're calling it perverse. I'm not so sure I like the use, because they just sort of like use perverse willy-nilly in this paper. They should just call it the minority view, because, you know, I think it is a minority in terms of numbers. But, like, yeah, I don't like the moral valence that is attached to that, the way it's getting used here. There is also Toher astrologer groups. What's Toher, Maddie? Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one, Cos. I don't know what their use of perverse here or how they're trying to do it. Ugh. The SOD theorists might respond by highlighting that they are not necessarily committed to the claim that the extrinsic desire for the continuation of an unpleasant pain experience is all there is to masochistic psychology. Perhaps what additionally makes masochistic psychology perverse. Again, so this is also a little bit in scare quotes that, and you know, maybe it's in the footnotes too, but like this is where people who are anti-masochistic, against the sort of like the idea that masochism has any value to those people, they would consider it perverse. And in that sense, that's fair. There's people who think masochists are bad, you know, and in that case, they're perverse. But like, yeah. T says, every time I see perverse, I usually think it's psychoanalyst or something. Could be. I don't know enough to say. Cost says, I rather enjoy BDSM and enjoy engaging in sadism. I also enjoy masochism to a certain point. I would like to have a conversation with the authors. You know, this is in general a very pro BDSM masochist paper. This one use of perverse is questionable, but overall they're actually very pro BDSM. So it's like, yes, I get your point, but like they seem to be on the right side of things, even though they are also calling it perverse. Maybe like they need to just have clarified that, but like that's the only issue here. But like I get what you're saying, but like generally they've been, I feel like, on the right side of the discussion. So yeah. Okay. Perhaps what additionally makes masochistic psychology, scare quotes, perverse has something to do with the atypicality of the relevant desires. For example, desires to be submissive or to feel humiliation. If so, then arguably the dental case considered above fails to qualify as a case of masochism because it fails to satisfy these other essential components for masochism or masochistic psychology. Koss says, so perverse then, not as a judgmental statement, is more of a psychological differentiation from the norm. That seems to be it does exactly. I dislike that they didn't clarify. Again, it may have been in a footnote somewhere, but like, that seems like all that they're using it for in this paper. Like, there's nothing hangs on the use of perverse here. And everything else seems to be judging the masochists as normal people. Okay, this is a fair response, although the SOD theorist would then need to specify what it takes these essential components to be, and indeed whether an appeal to a higher order extrinsic desire is necessarily once they are in play. Yeah, so again, they may have some ad hoc shit that they want to say, well, the masochist is weird, but there's some other shit in play, that's what's making it seem alright. Yeah. What's up, Energy? How you doing? Okay, Remember, although the challenge for the SOD theorist as considered here is to explain the sense in which masochists like that it hurts, and in some sense desire the continuation of the pain experience. And it is in that context that appeal was made to a higher order extrinsic desire as a fair candidate to be what principally explains masochistic psychology. You see, this is what I'm talking about. They are taking the masochists at their word, trying to treat them fairly, and the fact that someone's disagreeing with them is the other person's problem. And you're going to play some ranked Apex Legends, you are truly a masochist, Cos. T says it's like at the beginning where he assumed everyone just knew what sadist and masochist was. Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps the author is just like society generally sees this as perverse, so I'm going to meet it at that level. Is philosophy writing a masochistic act? Philosophy writing is incredibly difficult, as you know. You just engaged in some earlier. Writing in general is very difficult. I don't know if philosophy is special in that regard. Like, I wouldn't like writing poetry, writing a novel, like just even novel of fiction, not philosophy. Very hard. So you have to really want to fucking do it. Any art in general is very hard to pull off, making it worthwhile. Of course, you can do it for other reasons, but if you're trying to do some like high level philosophy, it's like, yeah, you have to be willing to endure some pain. And maybe if you like it, there might be some masochism there. Like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with philosophy. How does this paper define masochism? They're not giving full definitions here, but what they are doing is that they are saying the masochistic mantra. This is all that they need for their argument, is that they like that it hurts. Full stop. They're taking that as ground level part of the masochistic psychology, that they like that it hurts. That's it. And this is why I highlighted it right here. It's just on the page. Like, they repeat it lots of times, and this is all they need for their argument. Yeah. Okay. We can develop the current line of thought further by highlighting the contrast between the rationality of non-masochistic psychology versus the irrationality of masochistic psychology qua cognitive attitudes towards pain experiences. There is, strictly speaking, nothing irrational or perverse in extrinsically desiring to be in unpleasant pain, as it should be evident from the dentist example above. If, however, masochist psychology was modeled after these kinds of cases, it would likewise hardly be irrational or perverse. Of course, we might contest whether the instrumental reasons for which masochists suffer through their pains on such a view, whatever precisely they may be, are normative reasons, that is, the kind of reasons for which one should suffer through pains. Yeah, so again, is there a reason why we'd want to be in pain like this in some normative way? Presumably, we would be tempted to think that dental health is such a normative reason and that satisfying sadists is not. However, such issues seem downstream, or at least somewhat removed from the immediate response that we have to the masochist's mantra. Again, so to Cost's question, if we're just taking people at their word, then all these other things that are downstream, extrinsic as they call it, don't really matter. Like, we just need to know that they like the pain. In being told by the masochist that they like that it hurts, we are likely to think they have fallen prey to a more basic form of perversity or irrationality than merely having, for whatever reason, ended up with a somewhat atypical set of higher order extrinsic desires towards pain experiences. And this is what I was saying. Like, you can just say that this is fucked up because you can say that. That's unfair to other people, but you can say that. If these points are persuasive, then we might opt for an alternative explanation of the masochist mantra, which does not appeal to an extrinsic desire, at least not principally. What arguably more neatly explains the relevant psychology and psychological difference is that at least some masochists have an intrinsic desire for the continuation of an unpleasant experience. At least some masochists desire to be in unpleasant pain for its own sake. However, such an explanation of masochistic psychology as a purported psychologically real phenomena is fatal to the SOD view, since it forces us to look elsewhere for an account of pain's unpleasantness. Yeah, so if you just like it, then a view that says you have to not want it is wrong. It's a counterexample. Exactly, Cost. It's philosophy. Let me finally note a potential option of last resort. It might be claimed that masochistic psychology is best explained by positing a third-order intrinsic desire directed at my second-order desire. Masochists would intrinsically desire, that is for its own sake, the continuation of a second-order intrinsic desire that the pain experience should stop. Masochists would have conative attitudes towards or conative attitudes towards experiences. One problem with this kind of view would be the level of cognitive complexity it attributes to masochistic subjects, whose masochistic psychology is explained at two intentional steps away from their sensory component of pain experience. It is not to be explained by way of desires toward a specific bodily object or state of affairs, affairs, first order desire, nor by way of desires towards an experience of a specific bodily object or state of affairs, second order desire, but in terms of a desire towards an experience, specifically bodily objects or state of affairs. Yeah, so like somehow you like the idea of yourself being in pain is why you like it. So you like the idea of being in pain because, not because you're in pain and then you have a desire to be out of the pain, but you like the idea of that situation, like it's some kind of art. On this analysis, the relevant liking that hurts would be an intrinsic desire for the continuation of an intrinsic desire for the cessation of a pain experience. Put otherwise, masochists would not really like that it hurts, but they would like that they don't like that it hurts. Yeah. Energy says, part of the thing that makes understanding the psychological nature of the thing like masochism difficult is Wittgenstein's private language argument. Atypically, desires are inherently first person and they can't therefore easily be communicated to others in our language games. Well, that's why, yeah. So that's, again, what you have to take as fundamental. You don't want to be preaching at people, and that's kind of the target of this author. They're saying, don't tell these people how they feel. Just take them at their word. Like they say they like it, do it. And that's part of the background here, absolutely. So, at this level of removal from experience itself, at this level removed from experience itself, we end up with a picture of masochistic psychology that is cognitively complex, and insofar as we associate masochism with forms of sexual and bodily activity, this seems too cognitive a reading. The relevant liking phenomenology would be cognitive phenomenology as an attitude towards an attitude. Yeah, so you'd only have to like this sort of being in a situation of being in pain, and that you like that situation of disliking it. But like that's kind of really overbearingly psychological. Lumen says the beetle in my box is running a BDSM dungeon in there. I mean, they could be. I ain't telling you how to run what's going on in your box. Author concludes, while these are complex issues, I do not claim to have settled the matter decisively here. The case of masochistic psychology poses a significant problem for the second order desire views. So until we have a convincing explanation about how to handle such cases on SOD views, we should look elsewhere for an account of pain's unpleasantness. Yeah, so they're thanking some people. I was wondering, yeah. But okay, that was this paper. And now we get to rate it. As always, if you're in chat, you are free to rate. If this had some fun ideas and got you thinking, give it a brain dance. Capitalization and spelling do count here. So fun ideas made your brain dance. Nog scream for existential or artistic drama. I mean, maybe you could talk about that here because you have to take some people's experience seriously. Nog for deeper ancient ideas. Nog knife, slicing and dicing arguments. Nog navel gazing only for academics. Nog turd, all style no substance, still poop underneath. And Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. You can also use the global vote yay and vote nay of Twitch or my vote meh. Note, I do calculate an overall score. Everything in the green makes the score go up. Everything in the red makes the score go down. And the vote meh makes everything go towards the middle. And you can repeat emotes if you want, and it kind of piles up. Doctor gave it a meh, fair enough. Lumens gave it a nog kinky. That would be a great idea if I, dressed up in some like leather or something. Energy Diameter gave it a knife and a meh. Claus says they will refrain, they missed too much of it. Socknail gave it a knife and a poop. Thank you. So you got a meh, knife, and poop. Yeah. I mean, this is fair. I have a soft spot for people who investigate unusual topics in philosophy. I always do. So like I was saying earlier, I like philosophy of the city. I like philosophy of place. I like people who go out and investigate or use unusual examples and they bring it into philosophy. So I tend to like this sort of stuff. Get an example that needs to be, talk about some human experience, talk about some stuff we're doing, and show it how it actually has relevance to philosophy. So I kind of like that. Lumens gave it a knife. K-Pars gave it a knife and a sure also. Yeah, Koss says, I talk a lot of shit, but I really am interested. Well, feel free to read this. Viper says, philosophy of the cuck chair. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something going on similar to this. It's like, you're not getting pleasure. You arguably are missing out on the pleasure. Now, are you in pain? Maybe or maybe not, I don't know, but you're sort of vicariously watching something you want to be doing happening, I guess, or I don't exactly know. Someone else is getting pleasure that you are missing out on, so there's something going on there too. Luminance gave it a scream as well, and Ra gave it a meh. Yeah, K-Powers gave it a yeah, meh, scream, meh. Decent paper, like you said, not knocked down, but pushback. The convos off of it were nice. Yeah, and that's kind of like I said, I like the, engagement on these sorts of things. PT says emotional masochism. Yeah, so that's kind of the issue here. Yeah. PhD earlier said one could argue that third order desires are possibly one of the strongest drivers of most people's self-concepts. Perhaps. Like that might be like, direction in your life, the way you want your life to go. Maybe. Like, is that really how people are? Sure, some of them. Not everyone, maybe. Just people are just doing stuff. I don't know. But yeah. When we talk about ethics, Sakno tries to look at it from the stance of what would happen to a person who doesn't believe in consent, because in today's society, I believe we are going towards this terrible reality that there are people who don't believe in consent. That's why I asked certain questions I did, because I believe it's very important to combat. Yeah, I mean, it's a little orthogonal to like this stuff. Like they're talking about people who like it and are consenting here. So it's like, yeah, it's just like that's related. It's related, but it's like, it's just a sort of a side issue for this paper, though. But like, yeah, it's important. We're definitely not in a lot of stuff are happening nowadays where people are like, this is bad. And like, I do not consent to like having our government send military troops to the States. There's nothing I can do about that, frankly. And so there's a lot of things happening that I don't like the U.S. government doing. And it's like, yeah. PT says not in a very cognitive way, but very self-acting, self-directing at the same kind of time. Yeah. So that's part of it. It's like there's masochism and then there's like emotional stuff that are working into this, which is not like physical pain, obviously. What am I going to give this? Yeah, I'm going to give this a nog knife, a nog scream. It really didn't give me a whole lot to think about. Like, it's not a bad idea in general, but it's just going to get a bit of a meh, I think, out of me. Like, this is not, like, I wouldn't be recommending this paper to everybody, but, like, for this area, this is, like, entertaining. Like, this ain't bad. But it's, like, I feel like it's kind of in between a meh and a yay. But, like, I'm going to give it a, like, so, maybe a brain dance. So, it's, like, I gave it 3 good, things, but also a meh. Like, this isn't top tier philosophy, but like this is a fun paper. I think people would have a good time reading if you're interested in this. Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's a little bit of a complicated paper. This is what I like about these sorts of papers. It's that they are bringing in a counterexample. They did some argumentation and they talked about some stuff and they did it in a fun way. So like, yeah,